much. As I said again, we welcome you to Natchitoches Parish School Board Committee meeting. It is May the 4th at 5 p.m. Also, if you are going to speak to an agenda item, we have the paper back on the back. Fill it out. We have 3 minutes to speak and send it up to the front. This particular moment, Ms. Kanika is going to give us our roll call. I'm like, thank you all so very much.
Mr. Danzy?
Here.
Mr. McQuarrie?
Here.
Mr. Benefield?
Here.
Mr. Garner?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here, present.
Mrs. Edros? Here. Mrs. Miller? Mrs. Broadway? Here. Mrs. Nagaski? Here. Mrs. Palmer? Here. And Ms. Sullivan? Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you so very much, and I know that the superintendent is going to mention this, but I want to say, on behalf of all of our school board members, happy Teachers Appreciation Week. There's nothing that we do in life that we could do without an educator. So we thank God for all of those who have played a role and are playing a role in our life as educators. This particular time, I'll give it over to our superintendent.
Okay, so I want to echo those sentiments. I've seen some amazing things this year from our teachers. I've also seen amazing things this week as far as honoring our teachers. I saw Taco Tuesday at one school. I saw, probably my favorite initiative was one of the principals, Ms. Brooke Williams, made a Zen room for her teachers, and they were able to go in there during their off hour and relax their minds, bodies, and souls with some soft music and different things like that to really say, hey, we know it's been stressful, but we want to appreciate that. And I think we all, in our minds, when we think of teacher appreciation, we think of that one teacher who changed our lives. And so you think about that, and we think about the teachers in our district. They're doing that for some child, probably numerous children throughout the day and year. So we want to, again, thank them for all they're doing. And there's nothing we can do, monetarily, words, anything that can really illustrate our true appreciation of the job they do. So thank you, thank you, thank you. The next group I'd like to recognize, I don't know if they know this, but my wife was not a basketball fan until she went out to Lakeview this year, and she watched them, I believe, in the second round. And then I went to watch them at the state semis in Lake Charles, and that team, they can shoot, but the thing I think about with y'all is y'all are fast and disciplined. And I just thought y'all were amazing. I thought y'all represented us well. I know in y'all's minds you may have come up shorter than your goals, but I can't tell you how impressive you were to everyone in this parish. And I just think you need to give yourselves a pat on the back. Coach Williams, I think you need to be recognized for having such an amazing squad. And Mr. Hunt, Coach or Mr. Hunt, if y'all would like to share a word with us about the team. Yeah, come. We can't shake hands, but we can bump fists.
We have boys. Come on up. Y'all come on up, guys. Come on. On this side. Here you on the other side. Around some more. You have to understand, these guys, I first meet them when they're in the 7th grade, and it seemed like a month passed, and I go by the hall and they go, "Hey, Mr. Ham," I go, "Boy, who is you?" and they grow up so fast. Mikhail, my God, I already knew he was going to be a big boy by eating his mama food, but this is ridiculous. But anyway, I did want to say that this team was kind of like the Cinderella team, you didn't see them coming. I hope Coach don't mind me saying this. But I told him, Coach, you gotta win, or I'm gonna fire you. And so he came in at the beginning of the year and he said, Mr. Handbook, I got some bad news. I said, well, tell me what bad news. He said, we ain't gonna win nothing. I said, okay, Coach, you better find a way to win. So anyway, next thing you know, go in the gym and look, and Dr. Eloy, you're right. Those guys were fast. I said, oh my God. And so we had some guys who couldn't hit the side of a big red barn, and they were hitting 3-pointers. And I was like, wow. So I think that that's a testament to what great kids we have, what great support system we have with our parents, with our educators, and then last but not least, I give him such a hard time, such a hard time. But Coach Williams, he does a fantastic job.
Not much of a public speaker, but thank you guys for recognizing us, and hopefully I'll see y'all at some of the games next year.
Yes, sir. Also, I want to say that Coach Williams has some things on the table for our summer league as well. We're gonna work things out, having the kids essentially collaborating with the churches and everything. So
Oh, yes.
appreciate that, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, thanks, guys. We can't tell you how proud of you we are. Thank y'all so much. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Ms. Page. Go ahead.
And might I add, and I hope I'm not insulting anyone, but he is quite a phenomenal teacher. Many times we have coaches who are good coaches, but kind of the end. Not with Coach Williams. He is an amazing teacher. Just had to add that.
Here, y'all stay in place real quick. Reverend Harris wants to get a picture.
If y'all would get over here so
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
looking through the
nice.
window. Oh, you're fine, you're fine. You say take a picture, people run. You're plenty of room. Fast. Y'all gonna have to screw. Okay. Get those things down so I can see your face. I can't get everybody. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, so our next group, I am so excited to introduce, is Miss Ramona Widener in the, she here yet? Okay, so let me talk about this group before she gets in here. There is a program, it's a, I believe a national program, it's called the Call Me Mr. program. The entire idea behind the Call Me Mr. program is that there's a definite need in the education community for more African American male educators. And the Call Me Mr. program is intended to attract those folks through scholarships, through our local universities and colleges, so that they can come back to our schools and be a part of our education system. Miss Ramona Widener is here to talk about that program, but she has with her, I think she would say, an even more important guest, and that's Mr. William Roberson, right? And he is part of the first cohort at NSU's program, and he is a Naggish Central student. So we're going to get them to come up and speak, but he needs to know this is contingent on him joining NPSB on graduation. So, if, Ms. Ramona Widener with the Call Me Mr. program at NSU, and Mr. William Roberson.
Good afternoon to you all. Thank you so much for inviting us today to talk about Call Me Mr. and to recognize William, since he is, as Dr. Eloy said, a member of our first Call Me Mr. cohort, and I'm just extremely excited that we are almost past the pandemic, claiming it, so we can move full speed ahead with the program. So I'll ask William just to say a few words. He's our president, and then I'll fill in the blanks from there. So, William?
First and foremost,
You can take your mask off.
Okay, first and foremost, I will say hello to everyone, and I am really thrilled and happy to be here to be able to speak on behalf of this program. I will be brief. I will say that this program is a program that addresses the shortage that we all see within our school systems, and we know that primarily women outweigh the men, and there's a short percentage of men who actually choose this profession and want to go in and teach and be a light to this younger generation. And this program really gave me an opportunity to take on that challenge, and I speak from a place of gratitude when I say that this program is really beneficial to me, not only financially, the mentoring, the lessons, the instruction from Dr. Winder herself, it's all wonderful. But the grandest thing this program does for me, and I'm thankful for, is that it gives me the opportunity to be encouraging to this younger generation, to be an example, and to never end. When I say never end, I mean it's a continuous journey to preach, profess, and try to be a light to this younger generation, like I said before. And I'm willing to take the challenge head on. I see this program going above and beyond the expectations already set, and I'm here to do great things in Naggish, so forth for my community, and so on. Thank you all.
So real quick, I have a question for the board. Did y'all get goosebumps as well? And a question for Mr. Robertson. When do you graduate?
I graduate spring 23.
Okay. So L Page at NPSB.LA.
And add that his mother was a teacher at Dr. Central.
Yeah, she was.
Okay.
All right.
That's exciting. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
That's so exciting. Our next, we have a presentation from Ms. Christy Eichel and Mr. Lacaz. They are presenting to y'all the presentation of the Natchitoches Parish Virtual Academy and what that will look like moving forward. And so they're going to give you a brief presentation. You board members, you have something in your folder, but I think there's also a video image for those who can see that in the audience. So, Ms. Aisha.
Hi, good evening. I wanted to, I was asked to come and present to you about the Naggish Virtual Academy that we would like to start up for the next school year. Our motto is going to be to connect, customize, and complete. So that is our mission. Our purpose for beginning a Naggish Virtual Academy would be to connect the home-based school along with the virtual instruction that we will be providing to the students of Naggish Parish, to customize their learning, their location, and their ability, and to complete grade progression and or high school credit for our students in Naggish Parish. Also, our vision with the Naggish Virtual Academy is that we would like to utilize technology to ensure that all students are persistently progressing academically through the use of individualized instruction and continuous guidance. So we have already looked at a goal. What do we plan to do, or what would we like to do in the next 2 to 3 years? Right now, we would be starting as an academic program, servicing all of our 6th through 12th grade schools, but within the next 2 to 3 years, we would like to eventually become a school with our own individualized site code, so that we can continue to service our Naggish Parish students. As we all know that technology is taking over the world, and so we have to change with time to make sure that we are meeting the needs of all of our students. How will NBA serve the students of Naggish Parish? We plan to have 3 programs under our umbrella. The first one being a full-time virtual program. The next one would be an accelerated learning program. And then last but certainly not least, we're looking at a short-term virtual program. So our full-time virtual program would be a selective admissions program for self-motivated students based on the following criteria. And we have some criteria here listed. We would ask that the student is able to provide proof of having at least a C average from the previous school year, as well as maintain at least a C average. And also look at their attendance from the previous year. We do not want this to become a program where students are going virtual just because they don't want to go into the school setting or they're trying to avoid doing school work. We want this to be a successful program. As we have already said, we want to make sure that our students are progressing successfully academically. They must also provide proof of dependable high-speed internet service. As you all know, virtual, the students will have to have internet service in their homes. And they must also agree to stay in the program for at least one semester. That would be our expectation, because we do not want this to be a flip-flop where you decide to go virtual today and tomorrow you decide you want to go face-to-face. We want them to be successful in whichever realm of education that they're going to be in. So we would have an application process if this is approved, and the parent would need to complete the application process. There would be an online learning readiness assessment, and they would also need to provide the necessary documentation for the above criteria. If the student has met the above criteria, then the student and the parent or guardian would then be scheduled for an entrance interview with MBA staff or MBA administration. The parent and guardian will then be notified of either acceptance or denial into the Naggish Virtual Academy program after that time. So, how will this look for our 6th through 8th grade students? We will use Edgenuity for all students 6th through 12th grade to complete all coursework. Every student will be assigned an MBA teacher, and each student will be expected to meet weekly for a one-on-one Google Meet with their MBA teacher. And the purpose of this weekly one-on-one meeting is to stop or not to allow students to fall through the crack, to talk about their progress, or hopefully not, the lack of progress, and to answer any questions that students may have about things that they may be struggling with. And so we also want the 6th through 8th grade students to also meet weekly in a class meeting with their teacher. And this meeting would be more so for front loading. As we already know, 6th through 8th grade is going to be, if you're a 7th grade student, you have to take 7th grade ELA, 7th grade math, 7th grade social studies, and 7th grade science. It's not a whole lot of individuality into that. So some of that class meeting will be to help front load what is expected of the student for that week at the beginning of the week. Some of them may be used if a teacher sees that all of these students are struggling on a particular concept. They can use that for some remediation to help students understand maybe the area that they're struggling in. And of course, everything will be aligned to our state standards, which is provided by LDOE, and will mirror instruction and curriculum being taught in the traditional setting. And that is a big piece for us, because being a middle school principal, I do know that when students who decide to go back after that first semester, if they decide to go back face-to-face, we want to make sure that we are setting them up for success. We want them to enter back in, being able to have the lessons and the concepts taught to them that our traditional face-to-face students are receiving in the traditional classroom setting. So we are looking to also align the coursework through Edgenuity with the units that our curriculum team has already scheduled out for each unit as to on the parish timeline. So we want to make sure that if a child does decide to go back face-to-face, they are successful. For 9 to 12 students, again, they would use Edgenuity. They would also be assigned an MBA teacher. They would have the one-on-one Google Meet, because Again, we do not want any of our students to fall through any cracks. Now, they may not have as many class meets because if you know how the high school master schedules are set up, I could have 20 high school students and each high school student have a different schedule. So that would kind of be hard for teachers to do a lot of front loading. But we still want to hold students accountable for making sure that they are doing what is needed of them in this virtual program. Our next program will be the Accelerated Learning Program. I'm going to briefly talk about this. This is still in the works. We are looking at scheduling a meeting with our high school principals in the district because I feel like we need some feedback from them to help make this work because we don't want to be in a competition with any of our high schools with courses that we may be offering. We want to make sure that we are offering things that they don't already have to help our students excel. This would also be a selective admissions program for self-motivated students. They would have some of the same criteria that our full-time virtual students would have, but they would also have to show mastery or above on either LEAP scores and or a high enough ACT score to be able in that particular subject area. So this would be only a one class per semester that the student would be allowed to take in addition to the other course loads that they already have, their traditional course load. They would also have to have teacher recommendation from their teacher in that subject area as well as principal recommendation because, like I said, we want to work together with all of the principals that we are servicing and we want them to know which children on their campus are enrolling into our accelerated program and what can we do together to make sure that these students are successful. They must select one accelerated learning course for the semester. Again, they would have to complete the application process. They would also be scheduled for an entrance interview, and then the parents would be given notice as to whether they were accepted or not into that program. And this program can be for students who are either face-to-face full-time students and or full-time virtual students. So either student could enroll into the Accelerated Learning Program. And as I said, this is just a draft because we do plan on having a meeting with the high school principals either the end of this month or early June after everyone is finished with graduation. Of course, with Accelerated Learning Program, it will be also through Edgenuity. They will also be assigned an MBA teacher. They will also be expected to meet with that teacher at least once every other week because we did not feel like these students would have to meet every week. Most students who would qualify for the Accelerated Learning Program are probably very highly motivated students already. And of course, everything will be aligned with state standards for the courses that are selected. And last but not least, we would have the short-term virtual program. This would be tailored to students who have been placed in our virtual program by a designee from the Natchitoches Parish School District due to one or more of the following: either medical needs or illness, they may be placed there via IEP process, etc., or either expulsion process. And these students, if some of these students meet the criteria for our full-time virtual program, then they could end up in that program. They would not be considered the short-term virtual, in the short-term virtual program. They would also be using Edgenuity. They would also have an assigned MBA teacher to facilitate their process, and they would be expected to meet virtually one-on-one with their MBA teacher. Again, our total goal here is to make sure that we are helping our district as a whole move to being successful with all students, not just the students in the traditional setting. As you already know, we do lose students every year to home study, home school, and other virtual programs. So this is a way for us to get our students back into Naggish Parish through our Naggish Virtual Academy.
And is it fair to say, number one, thank you, Ms. Eichel, that was wonderful. Sorry, I'm bad about that. That was excellent. But it's fair to say that we learned a lot of lessons this year in virtual. This is not in response to COVID, but because I think there was the desire for this long before COVID. And we know that we lost students because whether it be the state virtual school or other parishes that had a more robust virtual that was already there for years. So I think this is a huge step in the right direction. And I gotta say, just based on your presentation there, I think you're definitely the right person to lead it.
Well, thank you, Dr. Elo. Thank you guys for listening. We have also included in our packet a draft of the handbook as well as a draft of our student parent agreement and intent to enroll for you to look over, as well as tentative timeline of things that we would like to get started if this is approved by you guys. If y'all have any questions, do y'all have any questions for me?
I was just going to ask, has there been any thought yet about extracurriculars, athletics, anything like that, or have we just not gotten there yet?
We're getting there as far as athletics right now. Beginning, the students would still be a part of their home school, so they would still be allowed to participate in the athletics and after-school activities of their home school, of their home-based schools. What was the second part of your question?
I think you've answered it combined because it was about extracurriculars and clubs, organizations, and sports.
Right, so they would still be allowed to participate in all of those things through their home-based school.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate each of you listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we're still on the superintendent report, but I haven't done much talking, so I just need note of that. Mr. Mike Ferdinand is up next. He is the Executive Director of Economic Development, and he is wanting to kind of give us a heads up because we have an ITEP application coming next month, and he wants to let us know all about that.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Mike Ferdinand, Naggish Community Alliance, Naggish Economic Development Alliance. And you're absolutely correct. Last week, the State Board of Commerce and Industry did receive and has moved forward an ITEP application for Warehouser. This is Project Pavarotti. In my last presentation to you, gave you a little bit of a warning that this was going to be coming. That being said, you're currently in receipt of all the documentation, and what that means is the clock has started. So it's my understanding that you're looking at possibly addressing this at your next regular board meeting, June 1st.
Correct.
So if you've got any questions, there's time to let myself know and the company know. Mr. Superintendent, with your indulgence, the company is here if the board has any questions. Okay. So, would you like to say a couple words?
Sure. Thank you. So, good evening. My name is Jason Smith. I'm the mill manager at Warehouser here in Naggish. Appreciate your time this evening. As Mr. Ferdinand mentioned, we're in the process of going through an ITEP application. Just to give you kind of in a nutshell what we're up to is we're going to be going through some modernizations at the plant, or that's what's proposed, to the tune of a little over $16 million of capital investment. That upgrades some of our equipment that's aging, as well as bringing in some new technology into our facility. And I think the key is there's really two main buckets that we want to think about. First is job creation. That's always the good news. This investment will bring 20 new jobs into the parish, a little over $1 million in additional payroll on top of what we have today. But I think more importantly, the bigger picture is we employ 210 associates. 170 of those are from the Naggish parish, not just the city, but the parish area. And of those 170, it's really about retaining those existing jobs. In manufacturing, we have old equipment, and it just gets old. It wears out, it breaks down. This is helping to preserve and retain some of those existing jobs that are important to the parish. So we'll bring some additional financials with the package that we present next month. But like I say, it's preservation and job creation is kind of our piece that we're looking for. Any initial questions or information that we want to make sure we include for next month when we review?
Mr. Smith, how many press rebuilds are in that 16 million?
Yeah, so good question, and I know you're familiar with our facility. So we have 5 presses today. We're operating 4 of those 5. Part of that has to do with reliability because of the age of the equipment. This will be 2 new press rebuilds, and then new process control systems on 3 presses. So the 2 presses that are replaced, as well as new process controls on the press that's there today.
Will that include a new lubrication system or a new system to try to grow the asset?
Yes, so part of that is upgrading the loop system, new hydraulic systems as well that control the movement of the press and the heating. Yes. Good question.
3 and 4?
Yeah. So the plan is to replace press 3 first, followed by press 4, and then press 2 will be the controls upgrade. In a few years, we're hoping to get to 9 and 10, but for now, we're just biting off what we can get approved. And I think, as you're familiar, capital is very competitive, and for a large company, it's a competitive environment. Weyerhaeuser has 3 mills that make the same products we make here in Naggish. So we do have a press that's on order. The question is, we want to make sure it comes here and not to our facilities in other locations. High presses. Yeah.
How long have y'all been in the Naggish area?
Early 80s, so 35, 40 years. And it's gone through.
Commercial, April of 1985.
So you all have 5 presses, 4 of them are operative.
Well, correct, and we rotate between those 5, but because of the amount of maintenance and things that are required. So we want to get to that point where we can reliably run all 5 of the presses, and that's part of that job creation for additional production and some maintenance folks as well.
The new employees will apply directly to Weyerhaeuser?
Yes.
Potential employees?
And some of those employees we've hired somewhere in the process of posting now. We're doing some additional hiring. We recognize it takes time to do the onboarding process to get people trained and ready for that increase in production. The housing market is very strong right now, and so it's something we want to be positioned and ready to take advantage of.
Let me say this, I appreciate you all having other meetings, because I've attended other meetings that you all have talked about these type of things, and it's not just something that just came out of the sky. You all keeping us informed. I think my colleague Reba has been to some of those meetings too, and if any of the other board members want to come to some of the meetings that they have, I think you're more than welcome to come to see exactly how this thing work out. Mr. Benefield and Mr. Danzig know how this stuff works. And, I'm thankful that I had an opportunity to watch to see how it operates, and the reason you all are meeting us to prove.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the comments. We definitely encourage questions, discussion. We are under strict COVID protocol still in terms of visitors, but when things open up, we always encourage visitors from the community as well. Frankly, we give a lot of tours, and we let people just come in and see how we make wood. I mean, it's kind of a neat process to see some of the technology. People like to see some of the robots and how things come together. So I'd wait, away from July and August. It gets a little hot and toasty out there, but the rest of the year it's fun to get out on the floor and see what's going on.
We do appreciate your company and all standing behind our high school at Lakeview and other places in this parish with the donations you all have helped us on different projects and all. So
thank you for that donation for the bridge too.
Yeah.
Weyerhaeuser giving funds. We appreciate it.
And we appreciate you guys. I mean, it's important. We need to have a strong school system. We appreciate all that you guys do at the school board, and we want to make sure we continue supporting all the great programs that you have. It's neat to be part of such an active community.
I think when anyone criticizes any of these ITEP things, I think we have to be very cognizant that these are very much symbiotic relationships. It's not some distant entity. We're talking about folks in this parish, parents of our students, grandparents of our students, and also tax dollars that flow through our district, so.
And it will add tax dollars to the school system, and I do appreciate that.
It does, and that's part, I know sometimes with the ITEP, you hear the word exemption and you think our tax bill goes down. I want to make it really clear that what we're paying in taxes today will only go up in the future. So there's no decrease. It's really an exemption over the increase. It's just a question of how much of an increase
And it's a partial exemption, it's not a full exemption.
That's correct. Yeah.
That was one point.
No, I appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you.
Well, thank y'all so much. I just have to say that I'm on a timetable for my superintendent's report. I'm trying to beat my record here, so.
I'm sorry.
All right, thank you for the questions, and we'll see you next month.
Thank y'all so much. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Thanks for the opportunity to serve, more to come.
Yes, sir. And the final thing on my superintendent report, I just wanted to mention what everyone knows here. We had 4 town halls. I would describe them all as productive. All of them were informative. That was the whole point, is to get information. And so I just wanted to say that I think those were successful meetings because we came back with information and talked to Mr. McGuire. He has penciled us in for May 11th at 6 p.m. at Grace Baptist Church in Clicheville. Is that correct, Mr. McGuire? Yes. For our next meeting, I think Ms. Paris is putting out something on that. She may have already done it today. So that'll be our next meeting, and there may even be some more in the month of May to just fully flesh that out. So other than that, that's all I got. Yes, the rest is on Thursday.
Mr. Watson, old business.
Next on the agenda, I'd like to bring up Joe Staney to present the resolution for the Clicheville school donation. So, Joe?
Thank you, ladies. Good evening. You have in your package the proposed cooperative endeavor agreement between the school board and the Fire Protection District 1. And in addition to that, there is a resolution that's associated with this cooperative endeavor agreement by which, if this is approved by the board, it will authorize Mr. Harris and Dr. Eloy to act on behalf of the board to enter into the actual agreement, the cooperative endeavor agreement, and also sign on your behalf the act of donation that formally reflects the transfer of ownership, if you will, of the Clicheville School to the Fire Protection District 1. Everything is as we presented last time. There's been no changes. The only revision is we're going to have the separate act of donation rather than encompassing that within the agreement itself at the request of one of the other parties. As far as a timeline is concerned, this review of the proposed agreement by you tonight and giving authority to Mr. Harris and Dr. Eloy to then sign both the cooperative endeavor agreement and the resolution and the ultimate act of donation will bring us further along to completing this entire transaction. As it stands right now from the Fire Protection District number 1, they are still going through their process of reviewing the documentation. They needed some additional time because of some additional questions that have been presented to them regarding some of the background information and evaluation. So they were not able to meet our deadline of having that completed by tonight. They still fully anticipate that all is well, and they very much want this to occur. But they say the devil's in the details, and they're trying to cross some T's and dot some I's with regard to their due diligence of review of all of this before they formally accept everything. They've got some obligations with regard to accepting the property. They just want to make sure that they understand the scope of what they're taking on. Any questions?
Did we put in the agreement for the bus drivers to be able to turn around and do things?
Yes, sir. That would be in there, and that is included specifically in the cooperative endeavor agreement.
All right.
And also what the reunions of the Clicheville class?
That's generally covered in the agreement as well through the creation of the ultimate Clicheville School Foundation that they would ultimately manage that through a sublease from the Fire Protection District 1. Everyone's got to carry their own freight. Whatever group they sublease to, they'll have to enter into a separate lease, including, for example, if the sheriff doesn't ultimately proceed as planned to put a substation there, they'll have a small lease of a portion of the building, and they would be responsible for maintenance and upkeep of their area, and to probably have, I guess, both the Fire Protection District 1 as an additional insured. We are even an additional insured through the Natchitoches Parish School Board to the policy of the Fire Protection District. And it's just another T-cross and I-dot to make sure that no lawyer out there ever thinks that we could have some kind of involvement without recognizing that we are insured. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, folks. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item, I brought this up at the people on the Zoom meeting here, calling in, are next, and would like to hand it off to them. I had brought up in our last meeting, which was considered old business here, is the adoption of a retirement plan for our part-time employees. This is already provided for in the law, and we just have to adopt it as our policy. So I was going to hand it off to, are y'all there still?
We are,
Okay.
yes.
Well, I was going to hand it off to you now to explain what a 3121 Social Security Alternative Plan is.
Thank you, I appreciate that. My name is Linda Patrick. I'm the manager of client services for Mid-America. So I do want to say we're super excited for the potential of working with Lee and Naggish on implementing our 3121 FICA alternative plan. So just to kind of go over high level how it works, many employers have difficulty providing part-time, seasonal, temporary employees with meaningful benefits. So at Mid-America, we have the solution of implementing this FICA alternative plan. This solution replaces Social Security, and it also can be designed in either a 401A or a 457B plan without affecting Medicare eligibility. So before we go into details on how the plan works, I do want to say that we do work with over 16 Louisiana parishes with some relationships going back as far as 20 years. And we do have over, just shy of actually, 400 employers across the country that are taking advantage of this benefit. So hopefully you guys have a deck in front of you that you can read along. But if you have any questions, just please interrupt me. I'd be happy to answer them. With the FICA alternative plan, employers avoid the matching 6.2% Social Security contribution. So instead, employees typically contribute 7.5% of their wages into an interest-bearing account on a tax-free basis, giving their money the potential to grow over time. So they receive this impactful benefit from their employer, while they're also maintaining virtually the same take-home pay. And we'll give some examples that will actually show how that works with their net payout. Their funds are 100% vested, meaning they all contribute to their plan. All those funds that are contributed into the plan belong to them. Typically we ask, and we see the question come, like, how does this affect their Social Security benefit? So when you pay into a governmental sponsored pension plan like this one, since we are dealing with part-time and temporary employees, due to limited hours and their earnings are not being a large amount, excuse me, with them not earning a large amount, we typically see a very small impact to their Social Security benefits that were earned while holding maybe a different full-time position. So employees enrolled in these type of positions may not make enough wages in their current role, resulting in employees paying into Social Security without actually getting the credits per quarter, so they're not actually getting those dollars for retirement. So I do want to pose an example. This slide that shows the 100% employee contribution example is where you have your employees contribute the full 7.5%. So the example that I'm going to go over is based off of 250,000 gross annual employee earnings, just for those type of part-time, seasonal, or temp employees.
Is that page 6? Page 6?
Yes. Yes. Page number's not blue line.
It should be the slide that says employer savings with FICA alternative 100% employee contribution.
Yes, ma'am. I think we're there.
Great. So in this example, as I mentioned, with the 250,000 gross annual earnings, employer, if you have 100% employee contribution, you'll save $15,500. So you're not going to contribute that 6.2% into Social Security. And if the employee pays that full amount, they're going to contribute $18,750 into their retirement plan. So you have an automatic savings of $15,500 in this example. If you go to the next slide, you're going to see the true employee paycheck impact. So as I mentioned, by having the FICA alternative plan, you're not paying that 7.5%, or 6.2%, excuse me. So the employee would pay $75 in this example, where they have a gross salary of $1,000. So $75 would be paid into our plan, which reduces the taxable income to $925, and the income tax on that amount would be $138.75. No contribution into Social Security. Of course, you pay into Medicare, which would be $14.50, and their net paycheck would come out to $771.75, which is a variance of $1.75 less than what they would currently be doing, if that makes sense. Now, I know in talking with Lee, if you go to the next slide, we were kind of playing around with numbers to see if Natchitoches was to contribute 0.5% of the 7.5%, what your savings would be, and then what the benefit to your employees would be. So if you were to do that, you would have a savings of $14,250 on the same example of the $250,000 of gross annual employee earnings. If you go to the next slide, you'll then see what the employee impact is, and based off of the same concept, with $1,000, $70 being contributed into the plan, reducing the taxable income to $930, the net paycheck is going to be $776, which is actually $2.50 more on the employee's paycheck based off of this example. So you would contribute $75, so the total contribution, would be $75. The employee would pay $70. You as the employer in this example would pay $5. So the employee's take-home pay increases through lowering the taxable income via pre-tax of the 6.2% contribution into the FICA All Plan. So I know that was a lot of information, but ultimately, again, this is a win-win. This is one of our most simple operating plans that are a true tax advantage to participants that we administer to and to our clients and our employees. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I want to say thank you for allowing us to present, and I welcome any questions.
How will this affect an employee if they later earn a job or get a job that does get them back in the Social Security system?
There wouldn't be an impact. They would have these funds available to them upon retirement. So they wouldn't actively be contributing into their FICA alt if they go into a full-time status.
What I'm saying is,
whether it would be with Naggish or another employer.
I'm talking later on during the distribution process at Social Security age, there would be two revenue streams?
I didn't hear that question. I do apologize. Can you repeat that?
I'm talking later at Social Security age or distribution, there would be two revenue streams, one from Social Security and one from FICA.
Absolutely. So they can take a distribution out of our plan. So they can request a distribution when they're no longer working or they're no longer employed by either Naggish or another district. And upon their distribution eligibility, they would just fill out a distribution request form. We would check their eligibility and they would get paid that amount out of their FICA All plan. So to answer your question, yes, it would be two different retirement plans. And they do have opportunity to roll funds over. There's some complexity there that they have flexibility. But yes, it would be in their own FICA All plan administered by Mid-America.
If they withdraw the funds that they have in there at a premature stage, does that mean they're out of the system for good? Did you hear that?
So the way that it works with the distribution is there's federal taxes of, I think, about 20% withheld for lump sum distributions that are over $200. There are no penalties for any withdrawals, regardless of age or taxes. They're not withheld if they do a rollover distribution. So we are the administrator of the plan. So if they, let's say, request a distribution and they're not eligible, we'll deny that distribution and let them know why, right? So we limit the risk of any compliance violations. We keep track of termination dates. We keep track of when they become full-time employees, because we do see a lot of temporary teachers that start off as substitute teachers and then go into a full-time position. So if you pay into the SPICA All plan while they're a substitute teacher and then you end up hiring them later as a full-time teacher, they'll just sit on this benefit until they retire.
It's also something that the part-time and long-term subs would then be able to participate in, and they've been asking for. And it actually creates a net savings to us. And it's not $250,000 in this district, it's several million. I mean, we pay out a lot in temporary help, non-full-time employees. Okay. So we need to pass a resolution, is that correct, or just to adopt the plan? Is that what this Premier Advantage plan that you have here, or this is actually the plan you would put in place?
This would be the plan put in place. I know we had sent over some plan documents that need to be reviewed and signed in order to implement the plan. But as long as we have the approval to move forward, we can work with Lee and team to get the process started to implement this.
I'll tell you what then, by Thursday's meeting, let me present a resolution that y'all could adopt to adopting this plan. I'm sorry, I didn't put that together.
It's not a voting meeting today.
It's not a voting meeting anyhow, so I'll have a resolution for your Thursday meeting to adopt, to put this in place. Does anybody else have any questions of me or them? Okay. All right, well, I guess we can sign off on your Zoom meeting there. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the time.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
All right, so the next on the agenda, if I may proceed forward, is I would like to introduce our new auditor. I had got a couple of requests from different firms. The best offer we got was actually a local firm, TCBT County. Currently we have experience with them doing our student activity funds for several years. They made an offer, and I haven't told them this yet, but their offer is now $5,000 cheaper than what we were paying the two firms to do it separately. But I would like to say to you that with the new GASB 84 ruling, we now are no longer going to have two audits. We will just have one big audit. So I'd like to introduce Jennifer. Jennifer, you want to come forward?
So as Mr. Lee said, there's no longer going to be two audits. It's going to be combined into one. And we anticipate having the audit sent in to the legislative auditor, as long as there's no unforeseen issues, by December 31st. And we'll present the audit in the January meeting. And I brought Jessica Broadway with me. Jessica's lady. She's one of the partners at the firm. And we do a lot of governmental audits, and we look forward to expanding our professional relationship with the school board. Any questions? Anybody have any questions?
I just love y'all's location.
Timing of your promise to time for the audit to be delivered.
Yes, and that's, I know that's been an issue in the past, that the audit has been late. We do not expect that, nor do we want that. It's, it's due on December 31st, and we fully expect it to be done by December 31st. And then that would have us here at the January meeting with bound reports, and we'll come and deliver them and present the audit. And it'll include the student activity funds this time. We're gonna go up though. I didn't know we were.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I got it in writing.
No, I'm just playing. But it'll be one big audit, you know, so you'll have your financial audit that'll include all of the funds of the school board, and that'll include all the student activity funds. So.
Thank you, welcome on board. Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator. Appreciate it.
This is something we have to approve
On Thursday.
on Thursday.
Them as the auditor?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, they've already bid it, so.
It went out on bid.
Well, my understanding is this was not a bidded item. This is just a professional service like I would hire an engineer.
Right.
So it's not, it's just, I wanted to introduce them to you because I know this has been an issue. I didn't want to just say we have a new auditor. This is, I did get out other bids just to let you know, and and it's nice, we can actually see the back of their building right through the woods here. And it's been nice to having her. We've already used them consulting wise already for several issues we're about to bring up here in a little bit. So this has been very nice, relationship already. Okay.
Consent agenda.
Mr. Harris, I would like Mr. Eloy to consult with Mr. Bob Hammond about voting on these trips that are no cost to the board. We had some contention with the orchestra that was going to Europe last year, and we voted on a trip that was no cost to the board. And who was gonna pay what, and why, and when, and where, and, Mr. Hammond suggested at that time, if it's no cost to the board, don't approve it, just let them go. So let's get something in writing from him on that.
I think we had a little contention concerning that.
Well, we had meeting after meeting, parents, and it was just the beginning of the pandemic. No one knew what we were gonna have a year-long adventure.
Right.
And Mr. Hammond's suggestion at that time was, if it doesn't cost the board, why do you need to approve it? I mean, let's follow up with that.
I'll get a legal opinion for y'all and I'll present that Thursday. Well, so there's certain things they have to do, but I remember that meeting with Mr. Hammonds because if y'all recall, prior to me coming, y'all approved it because it was 30 days out, and what happened is the trip was canceled due to COVID, and thank goodness it was, because if they would have gone like a few days prior, they would have been stuck in Italy for months, literally. Which would have just made my tenure even more interesting. But he did say at the time, he said I think by your approval, then that opens you up to, to just the discussion that you're somehow responsible, ownership of the situation. And so if that was his recommendation at the time, I would like to check back with him and just make sure, like Mr. Staney said, T's are crossed and I's are dotted, but I'll get back. I can get that to you on by Thursday.
Mr. Dancy.
Item 1, take appropriate action on bids. As far as I know, we don't have any bids. Item number 2, consider approving summer school pay increase for food service workers and managers for summer 2021 only. Okay. In your package, you see it's titled Estimated Cost of Food Service Staffing for Summer School. We had presented at the last board meeting about teachers and temporarily for this we had forgotten about the school food service. It was not intentional. It was just it's an oversight. This is to correct that as well. And so we're presenting this to you as it reads.
I think the main point is, if you look at the asterisk at the bottom, it is being paid from ESSER funds specifically for summer school. This
does not cost us any money.
Questions? Item number 3, discuss and consider approving school board member travel to Southern Region Conference in Biloxi, Mississippi in July. Mr. McGuire?
Yeah, I put this on because to go to the southern region, for the travel out of state, it have to be, the board have to approve it, and I talked with a few board members, and they said they was interested in going to it, or whatever, so that's what I would put it on there, but you could approve it Thursday for the board members to go in. And, do we have to, if the superintendent want to go, do we need to pay that with that, or do he can just go, the superintendent? I mean,
We should.
Yeah, cause they're,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, okay, just, put it with, and superintendent on for the board meeting. Because when I sent it to Kanika, I thought about that, if I needed to put the superintendent on there if you wanted to go. Because I know we couldn't go last year, but we had went the year before, and it was really a very, information from, because in Arkansas and Mississippi, and, see what they're going, and just learned that a lot of stuff that we have going on, is going all around us, is the same thing, Yeah.
Item number 4, consider approving one-time employee COVID compensation, LDOE budget approval.
Okay, so if you have this document, because I don't have a title to it, but we have, over the past month, we've talked to federal lawyers, we've talked to our personal attorneys, Hammond, Seals, and Geist, we've talked to our auditor, and I think we have to be very intentional with our words here, that this is, and I'll read the exact verbiage. It says, the Naggish Parish School Board continues in its efforts to operate schools in the face of the challenges brought about by COVID-19 pandemic in order to maintain efforts to respond to challenges posed to effective instruction by the pandemic, and in order to compensate its employees for the additional duties that have been and will be required of them as a result of the pandemic for addressing students' social and emotional needs. The board is being asked to consider a payment of one-time compensation to employees who were active as of the last day of May during the 2021 school year. Compensation will be paid in accordance with the following guidelines. We have consulted LDOE, we've consulted all these entities, and what they have told us is this policy we are presenting to you, or this plan we're presenting to you, is in compliance with all known statutes. I think there is some people are looking at this as a grant. Federal grants are typically done in one way. This is, ESSER stands for the Elementary and Secondary Schools,
Resource.
no, I just lost it as I'm talking. The Elementary Secondary Schools, oh goodness, it's different than a grant. It's trying to get us out of this situation. And this is an allowable expense under those guidelines. What you would be asked to vote for is approval pending LDOE approval of our budget. We put this in our ESSER budget. They still have to approve it. They are the last line in that, because again, Hammond, Seals, and Geist, seal of approval. Our auditor, it's not going to be an audit finding, it's in line with that. And then LDOE's guidance from Dr. Brumley, one of the lines says this is allowable, but we still have to have that budget approval. So how are we doing this? And some of these numbers are going to maybe throw you off, but October 1, we do a ton of hiring during this month of September, and so we don't want to penalize anyone who was hired during that month. So if your effective start date as of October 1 and your end date May 31st I know is not our last day of school, but because of some internal payroll logistics, we chose May 31st. You would be entitled to the full amount, which is $1,050, and there's a reason behind that kind of different number. It's based on, if you look at number of months, we wanted to give everyone, even if they started later, the same rate of pay. And when we started out, people who came in April were actually getting a higher rate, but less money, if that makes sense. February 1, if you start, so you're here with us a shorter amount of time, $600. April 1, even shorter amount of time, the $300. Then we also went to the next section. To be entitled to full compensation amount listed above, an employee must not have missed more than 20 work days during the 2021 fiscal year. COVID leave does not apply to this. COVID leave will not be calculated in this formula. But we still have some folks who perhaps may not
the cell phone on the desk.
We have some folks who may still not have been at work for long periods of time, and so we want to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. So we said 0 to 20 days, you get the full amount. 21 to 90 days, you would get a reduced amount to $600. Over 90 days, you would get a further reduced amount to $300, and that also goes in line on that table with your start date. So if you start later, that would also be prorated there. Employees currently on leave without pay or in pending status will not be eligible. Also, part-time employees and substitutes who worked in the 2021 school year will be eligible. So our long-term subs, I know they typically don't receive, they never receive some of these things like tax checks. They will be eligible for this. So how do you have someone who's part-time receive this? Well, they have a different table here. If they work for 120 days or 840 hours, they will get the full amount, and then 100 days, 600, 75 days, 300. There will be no impact to those who are retirees. Unfortunately, I will tell you, we put in there because we believe, and we spoke to many of y'all about this, and so y'all know what I'm about to say, board members will not be able to receive this money, which I think kind of goes to a point you had made previous, Mr. Benefield. So this was probably the 100th iteration of this document. It's taken us a full month to get there. Words matter, specific words matter. We wanted to do this in a way that was responsible with tax dollars, was fair to our folks, and was legal and ethical and all those things, and that just takes a lot of time. I do want to reiterate, this is not coming from local tax dollars, general fund, anything like that. This is coming from ESSER money, and if you go to the ESSER documents with LDOE or the federal government, these are allowable expenses that districts around the state and around the nation are all participating in.
This also includes, it's about $1 million. Okay, so for the total cost with benefits and everything added on, it's $1 million in title,
ESSER 2. Yeah.
ESSER 2 funds paid for it all.
And I would like to thank y'all for being on top of this, because I'm not thinking, even though I wish we could have done more, but I think there's to be appreciative of what you've done. So thank you.
We appreciate that. I also think, although this is for compensation, I'm not against the idea that this is occurring. We're talking about this during Teacher Appreciation Week. I think that's a nice little cherry on top that we're talking about during that time. Although again, it's for compensation, not just for we like y'all.
And I do want to thank the committee who showed up and voiced their opinion on behalf of the entire board.
Ms. Page, FMLA accounted for?
FMLA.
Accounted for these absence, days absence?
What?
Well, if somebody's having a baby, does it count? Their family
excuse. Family medical leave.
Yeah, but
They covered that. They covered all that.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that we tried to make sure, because there were other districts who did not take in consideration all of them.
But I think to your specific.
That was my only question, was it accounted for?
So
if you tell me yes, then it's yes.
Well, and just to do some due diligence between now and then, I'll ask that specific question to Mr. Hammonds. Like I said, he gave the seal of approval, but I'll go even more specific with him and say, this policy, it does not infringe or affect anyone who's on that FMLA.
Right. Yeah, I think that's where some of the people went off the track.
Street
code. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. They drew their line, and the line was violation of federal law.
Yeah.
Right. Can't do that.
So I will ask that very specific question and make sure we're in line with that, and I'll have that for y'all Thursday.
Item number 5,
Wait.
consider
I
approval.
just had a real quick question. I was just gonna
sorry.
ask, do we have a planned distribution date?
Yeah, it all has to do with when they do final approval. It's looking at sometime in June, probably somewhere about mid-June. Mid to late June. It all is dependent on getting the.
We've submitted the budget. We're waiting for the approval, which we're hoping happens in the next few weeks. And then also, we talked to the payroll department and we said, hey, how can we make this happen in June? And so that's why some of these dates were chosen. But I think, because the money still has to come in, I think June 1.
Approved.
Well, approval and ESSER 2 money still has to arrive, because it has to be dropped in. So we anticipate mid to late June.
So you have to get all your clock in, clock out. The reason we didn't go into June is because of clock in, clock out reports, because that would delay us 1 month before distribution. That's why this ends May 31st. You get all the clock in, and we have to process all that and wait for approval. And then we can make a payroll run at that time.
Thank you.
Item number 5, consider approving CIR school teacher retirement stipend pending LDOE budget approval.
Okay, and I'm sorry, it's teacher recruitment. This is the thing I'm most excited for. So we look at what's allowable under that LDOE guidance for the ESSER money. And I think a lot of us have talked about ESSER money, and it's a one-time shot, it's special, we have to do all the COVID stuff, but we also have a moment in time where we can really make this money work for us. And when y'all hired me, I think one of y'all's biggest issues was non-certified staff in the parish. And I think that's even on my contract to try to improve that. And I think we've made great strides, and Lord knows Ms. Page is always working on that. But what this does is our schools of most need. And I want to be clear, we're not saying bad schools, good schools. We're saying schools based on our SPS, they are identified as CIR school, critical intervention required. This would be LP Vaughan, Weaver, East, NJH, and Fairview Alpha. These 5 schools have a really hard time getting certified personnel. And so what we would like to do, and again, we've submitted this budget-wise, and we're just waiting for approval, so you're approving pending approval of a budget, is we would like to do a graduated teacher incentive to work at these schools. So if you, and let me just say, if you currently work there and you want to stay, you're getting this too. So it's very similar, if y'all are aware, at the Labs School, there's an incentive paid by NSU to work there that's been in place for years. This is similar, and we looked at it and we said, okay, how do we justify this, because it's not going to every school? Well, it's for CIR schools, it's for our most in-need students, our most in-need schools that have the highest rate of uncertified teachers. And so there's that, but then any teacher in this district, if they want to go to the school, they can do that. And we know that there's some folks that it doesn't matter about money, they're happy where they're at, and they're not going to do that, but we do feel like we need to address this issue. So the great thing is, it's for all the certified teachers who are currently there, and for anyone who comes mid-year, or anyone who is already there as a long-term sub and gets certified in the middle of the year. So those employed as of October 1 of the 21-22 school year will be entitled to the full stipend amount, and that's the $5,000 in year 1, year 2 it goes to $6,000, year 3 $7,000, while anyone employed after that date will be entitled to a prorated portion of the stipend. And we're actually working through some of this, because I know my payroll department has given some feedback, so some of the below items may change by Thursday. We're still in discussion about that. But as it stands right now, the draft copy that you have says employees may choose to receive their stipend either split over a 12-month period or in one lump sum. That's the item that may change, because logistically that may not be possible. We may have to just choose one or the other. Those full-time uncertified employees, so we're talking about long-term subs, they're already employed by NPSB, who become certified during the year, and I love this part, will receive a lump sum of their prorated employment incentive upon certification. So the idea is, someone gets certified right now. So they had, 8 months of stipend that they didn't receive because they weren't certified. We would, as soon as we see it in that LDOE Teach Louisiana, we hand a now certified teacher that prorated amount. And so that's, not only did they just up their pay because they become a certified teacher and they had benefits and all that fun stuff, which is great, so they greatly, they changed their economic life. We're going to give them a check for, in that year 1, close to $5,000, prorated, but depending on when they came. I think that's massive. So we've just incentivized coming to CIR schools, but we've also incentivized people getting certified. So I love that, and as you can tell, I'm super excited about it. The teacher must remain at that CIR school for the period of 3 years, unless it's a district decision. If we say, hey, we're going to move you, and no harm, no foul there. And certification is only official when it's obtained and posted. So someone might say, oh, I'm certified, and we got to see it on the website. It's got to be official, because We can't just be playing with money here. So we're talking about coming to Naggish Parish, teaching at a school where you can make a difference. You could possibly, over a 3-year period, make up to $18,000 extra than you're making now. I think this is a huge initiative that could have major positive implications for the district moving forward. Again, this is not coming from your general fund, it's not coming from anywhere else, it's coming from federal dollars. We're trying to make those federal dollars work.
So now you have multiple layers to try to entice people to become certified.
Yep. And we're gonna have ice creams on Friday.
I think we've, many of the board members here have pushed for this incentive. I know Ms. Page is more than happy and elated that this has happened because we have pushed for this, and thank you, Dr. Eloy, for being the person to help champion this.
Well, and what I love is a lot of these CR schools, they always look at us. I think a lot of schools in this parish feel forgotten at different times for different reasons. This is putting our money where our mouth is. You know, we're saying, you know, everyone says, oh, we got to address these schools. And that's all we do is we say, oh, we got to address these schools. This is literally saying, let's go find these, you know, rock stars and put them in these schools and compensate them for doing a job that it's a hard job.
And to get some incentives for it is
when they enter this, do we have say some boxes checked off, or this is what you have to do to earn this? Do they know what that is?
So we actually, when we originally did this, we had another portion that was going to be based on student growth. Unfortunately, we had to table that because the federal money will not allow for growth incentives. They actually have said that they don't want that. I'm not sure their reasoning behind it, but it's not allowable. So we can only, the only thing we can say is, let's get certified. We wanted to make it more expansive. They just tied our hands with that.
Well, you do have new instructors, leaders, which will take care of that.
Exactly.
And I was just wondering, for a person who comes in, they know exactly what they have to do to get this.
So
make it very simple.
Upon y'all's approval, we would slam social media and everything with, hey, come to Naggish and teach at these 5 schools, and you get this. Yeah.
Some type of contract because of the 3-year requirement?
We're gonna have to, we're gonna have to work up something in regards to that. The good thing is, if you pay them monthly with it, you've already prorated. So if they leave, it's not like you're putting it on the front end, so you're not gonna have to get money back, because Lord knows that's not really possible, so.
Mr. President, that ends finance.
Thank you so much. Ms. Page?
Mic drop, you forgot the mic drop. I don't feel like I need to say anything after that. We've almost made it. It is May, and this year has been like no other. And unless you live with the teachers, you don't know how hard they work. You don't know how hard they work. And I can't ever talk about teachers without talking about parents and the other support people. I just can't separate the two, I'm sorry. Because I'm telling you, they work hand in hand. So thank them, appreciate them, know that they have worked so hard and they are still working hard. As far as this report, you can read it, and Dr. Eloy, please do that mic drop.
I don't want to break Mr. Kozaz's.
We can actually compete now. Some people are hearing about us. I have to say that recruiting has been easier this year, and I have not stepped foot on one campus, well, not even Northwestern, that was virtual too, but they have heard about the things we're doing. They've heard that we're putting our money where our mouth is, or however that goes. They've heard that we have some momentum. They've heard that we're heading in a different direction, and that's good. That's made it a lot easier, and I just expect more and more things and better things to happen.
Mrs. Page, speaking of appreciation, last year there was no teacher appreciation banquet. Is there one scheduled for this year because of the COVID? Can you do that, and will you invite last year's participants?
We will, because we are going to run out of room if we wait another year, because right now we're planning to do it for last year and this year. And we want to do it on the riverbank
Great.
in October, because we don't want it to be too
You don't
hot.
wanna do it July?
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. So we want to do it in October, so that we can spread out and, you know,
Right.
do all that.
And I know they will appreciate that.
Any other questions?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
3A. I just want clarification.
Mhm.
December 1st, 2010,
Yes, I don't, something this year, but anyway, and this is a perfect example that I thought about skipping. This young lady has been working on this and doing different things. Depending on the program you're in, you have to do some things that are different. But it officially showed up just last week on the LDOE site, but she submitted information as far back as the end of November. So whenever that happens, I make sure they get credit for when they turn in everything they needed. Because sometimes on that end, they may miss something, they may make a mistake on their end. And if it's on their end, I give them credit.
certified? She got her.
She's on a PL.
Okay.
She's on a PL. Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
We have one item on the executive report, discuss board member resignation policy and procedure. Superintendent Eloy.
Yes, ma'am. I've informed the board members, but Ms. Willis called me earlier this week, and she verbally informed me that she was going to be moving and she would be resigning her spot. We are waiting for confirmation of that from the Secretary of State's office, because it's a process that she has to submit that to them, and then they send it to us, and then we have a certain amount of time to do that. So I thought it was obviously a perfect time for us to review our policy on that. If you go to the CAP system, it's file ABCDA, specifically ABCA, and that is unexpired term fulfillment. I'll read it very quickly, really more for the audience than for the board members. Vacancies in the membership of NPSB caused by death, resignation, or otherwise shall be filled within 20 days by appointment by the remaining members of the school board. And that 20 days does not start until receipt from the Secretary of State. If the school board does not fill the vacancy within the allotted time, the governor shall appoint a person to fill the vacancy. If the unexpired portion is more than 1 year, a special election shall be called by the school board in accordance with state law. If a special election is called, the appointed member shall serve until a successor is elected and has taken the prescribed oath of office. If any member of the board does not fulfill his or her complete term for any reason, the person appointed to fill the vacancy during the remaining period shall be eligible in the next election as a candidate for the office to which he or she is appointed. In addition to the above, a vacancy shall be deemed to have occurred when a member becomes domiciled outside or changes his or her domicile from the district he or she represents. So there's the policy, but I would also be remiss if I did not speak to the character and just lovely person that Ms. Willis is. I wish her all the best, and I think I can speak for the entire board and say that she will be greatly missed, but we wish her all the best in her future endeavors. But we also look forward to this new chapter for the board. So.
That concludes the executive.
Any other comments or anything on that?
I'll inform you all when the Secretary of State starts our 20-day timeline, because that may necessitate a specially held meeting, a special called meeting. Yes, sir.
On the informational report, you would
Yeah. So real quick, I talked to Reverend Harris about this. There are certain items that we have been voting to receive, and I think the way that Mr. Hammonds and Hammond, Sills and Guys have told us is it's a little bit of I think the word he used was superfluous. So just lagniappe, it's not necessary, and it kind of if it's not necessary to vote on, then what happens if we were to vote against it? Because this is not talking about action taken by us. These are just truly informational reports. It's saying this is what happened. So to vote against it or to vote for it is I guess questioning, did it really happen? And so there's no need to, so that's why we're putting this here. I told the board members though, this is a change in agenda, so if we look at this and it doesn't feel comfortable and we want to get more information from Mr. Hammonds, no. This is not something that, I'm married to, but I think it's something that would be beneficial for the meetings to go in a certain way and not have y'all vote on things we don't need to vote on, so.
And a person in the audience or a person on the board can always speak on whatever agenda item as in the past.
Correct. You still get to talk about it and all that good stuff, it's just we don't need to vote on non-voting items, so.
All right, so first on the list would be the transportation report. I see Alfred's in the back, so I'd like to invite Alfred and Jeff both up.
Hello. First off, we'd like to thank all of our drivers. First off, we'd like to thank all the drivers, monitors for doing the excellent job that we've been doing this year. Of course, everyone knows this is totally unscripted year, totally different from any other year I've ever seen in my career. But I am amazed at the job that the drivers and monitors and everybody in the office are doing thus far. And I'm asking that we continue to finish out the year strong. We had a report last month about the air conditioners on the bus. I'd like to announce that we took the initiative to check all of our equipment. We found some faults in some other ones, and the last 3 weeks, our maintenance team has put everything aside to address those issues. And right now, I think we have maybe 2 that we're waiting on parts for. And those 2, one of them is a spare bus, and the other one we have 1 unit working, and the back unit isn't. So it isn't totally without air. And those parts will be in this week, and that bus will be repaired. We would have switched it out, but the spare bus is totally without air. And right now, with the job that our maintenance team is doing, we're not even using our spare buses. So I definitely like to applaud them for that. Their diligence and hard work in keeping the buses that's permanently on routes up and running. Anybody had any questions about anything?
Ms. Matthews, talk to us about all the rain.
All the who?
All the rain.
All the rain.
That fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
We still having problems in some of the rural routes?
I'm going to go ahead on and say I actually got stuck in the mud.
It's not hard to do on our road.
Yeah. I guess that was my welcome to Naggish. But
and I won't let them forget it.
Yeah. But even with that, we overcame. We've actually had a huge decrease in buses being stuck when it's rainy and muddy. Due to route changes or just drivers helping other drivers out, say, hey, don't go this way, don't go that way. We took those opportunities and learned from them. And like I said, I'm extremely proud of the team. Extremely proud.
What's the status on the shortage of drivers right now?
The status of the shortage, we are definitely still short. It fluctuates for different reasons. We have some drivers that may be out because of their kids with issues with COVID or the drivers with COVID. I'm happy to say that our program that we implemented this year of turning monitors to drivers, we have, before this week, we were 11 for 11. And as of this week, we have 2 more monitors that just received their permit. So they're in our training class on how to become drivers, or they're actually getting ready to take their third-party test. They passed the written test, they have their permit, and 2 more drivers, hopefully they'll be licensed by next week. And I'd like to say again, we extend that program to anyone in Naggish that wants to come in. We'll fully pay for all of the training, pay for your license, pay for the tests. and definitely have an opportunity to drive for us here in Naggish. And while you're in training, we could definitely use you as a bus monitor. So you'll be a monitor on our payroll and go through our training while getting paid to get your license.
What's the age on that? Do they need to be 21?
21, yes, sir. 21. Yeah. Any other questions?
The young man with you, who is it?
Good evening. I'm Jeff Pullen. I'm the Director of Operations for EchoRide. So a lot of you I've met, some of you I haven't. So good evening and thanks for having me. I want to talk a little bit, if I could, about routing in general. I think we made some really good strides from last year to this year in like the city routes and East and Weaver and LP Vaughan schools were positively affected by that. We do have some work to do in the outlier areas, Marthville, Provincetown, Clicheville, and it's going to take some creative work behind it. I want to let you know that I'm starting that process now to work with Mr. Wascom closely to identify those. Obviously, there's constraints of time and capacity. Time, I'm always surprised when I come down 49 how far the Natchitoches Parish sign is compared to where you guys are. It's a big area, so that is a constraint. That doesn't mean it's impossible though. It's just a challenge to work on. We do have a pretty creative solution in Clicheville that could be improved upon, and I think we could do some more things like that. As I said, I'm going to be working closely with Mr. Wascom. It may take some more resources to do that, to free that up, to have more of a transfer into the city, so we're not bringing so many buses into the city. That's obviously a pressure point for us. All the students coming into Naggish Central. It creates a lot of traffic. Everyone gets delayed. Takes a lot of time. And then that creates that pinch point where you've got students on the bus for an hour and a half. So I understand your concerns. I do. I've heard them, and I definitely understand, and it's something that I'm going to be working on with the team. So,
You all have a route out on 1265, Five Fork Road. I talked with the parish president. The road's so bad that y'all can't get the kids are having to walk through the woods to catch the bus. Hopefully, by this week or by next week, we can have that taken care of, because kids don't have any business at that time walking through the woods trying to catch that bus. I thank you all for being there, and we gonna work that out.
thank you. And that is one of the constraints obviously. I've spent a lot of time riding on the buses to see what the student experience was like in order to work on it. But that's one thing, the roads obviously do impact that, because we have to go much slower than the speed limit in many cases so the buses don't fall apart.
And I'm glad you said that, because I talked to Mr. Matthews about a month ago about me riding some of the routes with him, and that never came to fruition because of me. So I need you to hold me accountable. No, I used to drive a bus. But
the bus that you need right now is a four-wheel drive.
So if you have a CDL, then you use a driver.
I just had to get recertified. Actually, me and Ms. Page have talked about doing it. So I want to get on one of those buses. So I need Alfred. You need to holler at me next week, and we'll make it happen. So.
Looking at the time or whatever, don't forget our policy for kids shouldn't catch the bus before 6 o'clock.
Absolutely.
The only way they can catch it before 6 o'clock if they kinfolks is the driver and they're leaving the house before 6 o'clock. And that's the only way, because our policy states no child pickup before 6 o'clock.
Definitely, thank you. Is there any other questions about routing?
I had one now because of the change in this, the COVID-19 situation, and there are more kids in school, but we still have ongoing issues. There was a problem at one school just recently. Or what about the capacity of some of the buses? I know it's larger right now, but are you still able to meet the CDC?
Yeah, we are. We had to make some changes within the last couple months, actually, as as it started to rise a little bit. What we do is we daily take an inventory of each bus and what the load count was, so we can make those, adjust those as necessary. But we have come into a couple instances, especially in town here, where the bus capacity got pretty high, and we had to make some splits.
Yeah, and that kind of took some of our personnel as well. So part of the reason why I'm on the route.
Right. It is.
So I'm driving what's called an overload route.
And I would like to, I think it matters to families, because families demand, and they should, good service and timely service and all those things, but I just don't think that, although y'all done great this year in terms of addressing COVID, I don't think y'all should necessarily be judged in the same fashion during a COVID year. Because you've had to, do capacity, and then we've changed on that, and so, we'll judge y'all partially next year, but, I think we have to just keep that in mind, which I know everyone has, so I just feel obligated to say that for y'all, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
So
much.
well, I'd like to add one thing, is that going to these town hall meetings and listening to people and the complaints about the hour-and-a-half long bus rides, I've been working with them. Our goal is to present something that hopefully will help alleviate the problem, and we can deploy in August, okay? So this is where this came from, was just one of the benefits of the town hall meetings was listening to everybody. And though it was one topic, it inevitably went back to my child rides an hour and a half. And that's something that, but remember, we have a very large parish with a very sparse population, but also we have, road problems.
But we never, just like we're getting to the point where everyone says COVID, 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 and I know this isn't what Mr. Watson is saying, but I want to highlight that we don't want to ever say, hey, it's a big parish, so tough. I think
no.
We want to work through these.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge, but there are some things we could do, and talking about it freestyle in front of the map the other day, that we could do some things that may cost the district a little bit more money, but allow them to deliver to children faster to their destination. And that's what, so we're trying to, I just want to let y'all know it is a concern with the busing group, and we're trying to come up with some answers that would be best for that.
And Mr. Wascom, can I ask you, I know that one of the concerns that I heard, while we were out of the town hall meetings was about some additional activity buses to some of the more rural schools as well. Is that something that's part of your conversation?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, at any time they make a request of Alfred, it's what, 20,
it's a dedicated activity.
Dedicated
and I emailed, I think I emailed Alfred and Ryan about that, so that is part of the larger conversation, but, there's not been, that's part of the grander plan, so.
Absolutely.
Right, thank you.
Just we'll have to get with that.
Well, Mr. Wascom, I want to appreciate you for getting on top of that, because even before COVID, I don't think we addressed what's been addressing us for years, and that's these kids staying on these buses and catching these buses so long. We've got to address it. We've got to continue to deal with it until we get it to where everyone is happy about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
definitely younger kids.
Yes, and thank you all for working along with us to get it done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're fortunate.
Should let money dictate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Albert.
All right.
Okay, I'd like to present the Sales Tax Commission report. If I could skip right to the guts of it. Once again, we always want to look, it's about, you want to look to, okay, from the back. Flip back one full page, and it's the third page back. You'll see that it's titled Natchitoches Parish School Board Fiscal Year Sales Tax Collections, and then the next one over here, well actually, this very last page, the back of the last page is a motor vehicles. Flip one page back and you'll see it says, the issue is distributions, that's the key. And you will see at the bottom for the month of March, our sales tax collections are up 7.7%, 77%. This is a trend. And I will tell you though I cannot, it's not official, our next month's report is exceptionally good. And so I'm seeing a trend that we're probably not gonna dip below 7%, so we will be presenting at our next board meeting some budget adjustments to increase our sales tax, anticipated, well, known additional tax collection.
So, Mr. Wilson, can I ask a real quick question? I know the answer, but I want to hear you say it. Is it fair to say that the sales tax checks in July are going to be substantially higher than?
And I will add that our sales tax money is increased to such a point that we will anticipate a substantial sales tax check. And I guess it's distributed in the month of July, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Like you're speaking in tongues, let me interpret it right now.
I will say that we just got the money put in the bank like Monday or something, and looking at the analysis from last year, my next meeting will be delightful. In the sales tax report.
He was positively giddy.
Oh my gosh, I was giddy. Okay, so the next one is the next page with the yellow lines here. Nothing remarkable. Everything's pretty much with the budget report. Once again, you're looking at the third column for actual. If you look at the first line, we have $40,648,000 worth of collections. Of course, we'll come with 2 months left here. The expenses are in the first line in the yellow. The child nutrition side, now that has been something I've asked y'all to watch. I will tell you that I'm going to be asking Shauna to come up here in just a moment. But you will see that the revenue and expenses are within $29,000 of each other. This is a big deal. There was $450,000, and it all had to do with the lack of children being fed. We can only charge them based on the number of meals served, and we still had to have the complete staff to serve a smaller amount of people, children. So anyhow, this is a big deal for us. Like I say, I don't want to steal anything from Shauna until she gets up here about the rest of her report. But in Title I is pretty much where it should be, based on the fact that what you see here is Title I on the last page. Revenues are less than expenses, but this is us spending some of the CARES Act money from last time. I will say that the month of June will look very good on this line. That's where all this money starts pouring in, which gets distributed in the month of June. Okay, I will say that Chad might remember the number. He's the one who gave it to us. It was like $368,000 worth of COVID reimbursements. Is that right? Something like that. It's on the budget. We had spent out of general funds to cover COVID leave time and all related types of leave that were approved by Dr. Eloy. We paid all that out, and then now with the money coming to us in June, it's around $360 some odd thousand will then be reimbursed to us. So this is a big help in the general fund as well. So anyhow, Title I numbers are going to look really good when I report them at the July meeting for what's coming in June. Okay? All right, the maintenance report. I'm not going to read this to you. You're welcome to. It's lengthy. There's a lot of, you'll see the word leaks and all this stuff, AC fixed. This is a typical thing about what goes on in a month. I'm glad to have this report. This is something I deal with on a daily basis. It kind of sums up the month of all the things that have been dealt with. I would like to report while I'm looking at facilities. Yeah, Friday, the end of the FEMA inspections, the last of the FEMA inspections, where they actually were freed up from their COVID restrictions to show up in person instead of us doing it with Zoom. First two buildings were done with Zoom. They actually had somebody show up and did all the inspections of all the locations. So now we're very close to the end. Well, not very close. I perceive that we're much closer. I've never gone through this process. We have had FEMA support in the past, but it was like Natchitoches Central flooded, right? This is all locations. damage everywhere, okay? So that's what makes this so lengthy of a process. It's gonna be millions of dollars worth of reimbursing us and repairs. They have a schedule for 90% reimbursement. Normally, it was 75%. They took a look at our parish and have scheduled us for 90% reimbursement. So a lot of the expenses and the BRE funds that I have spent out of everybody's funds that are familiar with building, repair, and equipment, a lot of those expenses will be reimbursed. But that money may not arrive in this fiscal year. So we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping to get Shauna's spoiled food reimbursed back into food service through FEMA, hopefully before the end of the year. That's on some sort of quick pay system. Anyhow, it's complicated. They have lots of categories, and we are moving forward with that. We're soon to put out the bid and all these things. We've got repairs at Goldana, repairs at Marthaville. We've got restroom and carpet removal at East, Magnet, Belle Pevon, and Weaver. We have continuing construction. Y'all can see the grandstands are up at Naggish Central. That actually happened within 2 days. It was just a Lego block thing. They just had it all done. The press box comes in separately. They're going to remove it off a crane, hopefully Friday, and just put it on top, and the press box will be installed. It comes pre-built. They are having a few little issues getting materials, and a lot of the materials have increased in price. It's not going to change our pricing, but they are struggling sometimes with the delays. But they're still planning on finishing Naggish Central on time. So, but it's still going to be on Building Q, for instance. It's still going to be by December. But y'all are welcome to go by and take a look. It's a bit muddy right now, but please go by. This is public funds. This is our construction, and I'm proud of the work that's being done. So, anyhow, by the way, the Marthaville construction is going to be scheduled probably for around $2.5 million worth of upgrades. We have some things in Province Hall as well, but playground equipment. I think there's no place I'm not replacing all the playground unless it's already new. We're getting away from putting a barricade around it and put those little the sawdust inside. We'll have the playground equipment with those little rubber pellets. Anyhow, it's exciting to me. I'm sorry if I dragged on too much, but yeah. All right. So what's next is I think is Sean. I'd like to bring Shauna Hicks up for the food service.
Mr. Wascom stole a little bit of my thunder with his report. Actually, I have lots of good news tonight. The month of March was our largest claim for the year because we continue to have students returning to school from virtual. So March was a really good month for child nutrition. I have also learned that we are going to continue to feed under the summer feeding program next year, and what that means for our parish is that all students will continue to eat for free next year. It's also good for us because we get a higher reimbursement rate for breakfast and lunch. So that will continue all the way through 21-22. That was great news as well. I've also been informed that the USDA will be reimbursing us for some of our losses that were incurred in the beginning of the pandemic. In March, April, and May of last year specifically. This is calculated on a formula. I did the math today, but before I share the math, I want to double check it with the state. But between that and hopefully the reimbursement that we could receive from FEMA, I think we're looking at starting next year not only in the black, but with a little cushion, which is a great relief to me and I'm sure to all of you as well. So things are really looking up in our department. I would also like to thank everyone who has worked so hard in our cafeterias, our managers, our technicians. It's been a stressful and hard year for them, but I think we're going to make it to the finish line. So thank you for your time. Does anybody have any questions?
Before anyone asks any questions, I'd like to highlight, I think you were there, Reverend Harris. There was an issue at the Natchez Town Hall meeting, and Miss Gallion happened to be there, who I know is one of your top folks. And I know that she said, I'm going to take care of that tomorrow. and she took care of it the next day. And I just thought that's exactly the model we want in all employees. We always say mistakes can happen, things can, but it's how we respond to it. And that exemplifies the culture we're trying to create as someone who says, I'm going to take care of that. So kudos to you and her.
Thank you. Promised that she would.
Updates of equipment. Just briefly mention.
Okay, and just briefly, we are just this close to being able to put our equipment out for bid that was to be purchased with the bond issue. And that has been a learning experience as well, but the cafeterias can look forward to receiving lots of new equipment that was provided for in the bond. So that's exciting as well.
Ms. Hicks, have you come across Mr. Wascom, have you determined the break even on the backup generator for the warehouse? Is that feasible? Is it not feasible? Is it, I know we were at that point where it's, and we did lose so much money, but is it the cost of the
I will say that.
and maintaining it?
Well, I will say that the lesson I learned is the insurance company's not gonna pay for it. Unless it exceeds $100,000.
Yeah, well, that's our.
So there you go. I mean, so every time we experience $100,000 worth of food loss, you know, you could say, like, if the generator costs $150,000 to run that entire area of her warehouse, run all those three-phase coolers and freezers, then, because it's quite a substantial generator to do that. I think the generator's worth about $156,000, then you pay for half of it the first time this happens. I actually want to make a clearer plan to where we look at the idea of starting at her main warehouse, but then move around and start doing generation of each location. I think Naggish Central, some of the bigger locations should be focused on first to get generators to at least keep their coolers going.
That junior high, maybe.
Yeah, anywhere where we have, well, I'd say LP Vaughn, anywhere where you serve a substantial number of people, they're going to obviously have bigger equipment.
Okay, we had heard about it, they're nice, but we didn't have it, I have not remember any feedback since.
I actually had someone come out and walk the grounds with me this week to get these specs, because I think what we were thinking initially would be large enough. We've since decided that's really not the route that we want to go. So I should be getting the specs on it, and I can take bids just to see exactly what it would cost. I have confidence in the person who's going to give the specs to us. And of course I have a little bit of funding that I got through the Warehouser grant, but maybe with being in a better position at the beginning of school with some of this funding that we're going to receive, it's looking more possible, I think.
Yes, we have some funds that can't be disclosed because we don't know what the number is, but when we're able to report what that is, we might be able to use some of those funds in food service towards this piece of equipment. And that would be helpful, because right now we have $7,000 in reserve for that. And I'm also trying to figure out exactly where we're going to stand with all, what I was hinting at with the increase in sales taxes, how that might impact us as far as general funds. Because this is, if it's not going to be able to be afforded out of food service, it's going to have to come out of general funds. And it's just a matter of where we stand.
Track past history.
Track past history. With all these different federal funds and stimulus money, and millions of dollars coming in, I'm not sure how relevant some of the history
well,
is.
Well, talk about failures. Failure and how long, how much for.
Oh, failures, you're talking about as far as?
Well, the food prices are going up. I mean, there's no doubt. I think they're already gone up like 7-8%.
Well, I also think Hurricane Laura gave us an absolute catastrophic event, and that's what we need to prevent. We don't want to just do a couple of hour outage. But we need to be able to, because I think actually we don't need a generator for a couple of hours, because as long as you keep them sealed, they're fine.
That's right.
But the moment we have a week of outage, that's when it becomes a problem. That's why over all these years it hasn't really been that big a problem. But now all of a sudden we've realized it's glaring that we need something. So also it would help. I don't know if y'all know this, but during Hurricane Laura, we tripped a lot of breakers and busted a lot of the equipment and electrical systems. And that generators would help solve that problem as well. So we don't get all these big surges coming through as they try to turn everything back on, which was burning everything up too. We lost thousands of dollars worth of equipment that way. So.
like we're on the top of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. All right, I think, that's about it. Any other comments? Thank you already. If you would, kind of, give us some, updates on what's happening in our district, if you would.
Yeah, well, I had a report come in that, in the Ashland area, that we're looking forward to, possibility, they're looking at drilling some gas wells and stuff on that, so we're really looking forward to that. And if that does happen and they hit, it'll be good news for the parish and also our district and stuff. I'm really pleased with our district out in District 7 as far as the projects we got going on at Lakeview and Fairview and Golgona. And Mr. Watson, when we had that VRE meeting a couple of months ago, our principals and all are still talking about that, how much they enjoyed that and how much they got accomplished.
Well, they're still sending me requisitions.
They don't break through it, so, and that's okay as long as, they don't just waste it and stuff, and I know they won't, so all good out there.
All right, well, listen, I just want to say to this board, listen, this is about us as leaders making decisions for the future of our district. And one of the things that happened with Eugene and I, we had to make some decisions that many folks looking on the outside can't see what's going on the inside. And so as leaders, we have to be able to take those on the outside and let them see. And that's the biggest thing. Have them to see where we're going. Because they're blind at where we're going. So we have to do a good job on this board, Dr. Eloy, any leaders. We've got to do a great job of getting those who are following us, those who are depending on us to lead them to green pastures and still waters. They have to see us. That's who they're depending on. So I'm praying that we will continue to lead, be leaders, as opposed to, and not only leaders, we will continue to be trailblazers as opposed to pathfinders. So with that said, I'm gonna give her 1 minute.